Hi, welcome back to another video. I'm going to assume you've already watched the other parts of this series, so I'm going to jump right into Q&A. Let's go. So first up, we gotta talk about the roadmap being pushed back and what that means. The WaltonChain team did not adhere to their original roadmap, as the wallet and Genesis blockchain were not released in October as planned. So why did that happen, and what does it mean for the future of the project? Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is not good. The project is less than a year old, and they're already pushing back deadlines that they self-imposed. We should be very critical of them. We should hold them accountable for basically not communicating with us that this would be the eventuality. We basically got to the end of October without much of any word related to these delays. Some might go as far as to call them liars for basically not telling us that they were going to eventually push back 3 months from their original slated deadlines. And yeah, it's not good. I think they definitely deserve criticism for the way that they handled it, and I think they are aware of the communication issues, and they're going to work to better that. Part of that was to release a letter to the community addressing why we're now seeing these delays. So first, they informed us that the development of the parent chain has been done, and in theory, they could begin the Genesis block on October 30th. Given that they've had some interruptions and that their development priorities have changed, so too has the roadmap and development cycle. They make the point that they want to provide the best possible product for our current and future users. So they go on to explain what were those interruptions that they're mentioning. One of the big ones was that in early September, we saw the Chinese central government ban on ICOs. At that time, they had to basically put on hold the development of the project while they worked on ensuring compliance with the Chinese government. Mind you, they had just finished their ICO, so they were definitely a target for this scrutiny, and it ended up delaying them about a month. So thankfully, that didn't seem to hamper their ability to innovate and develop, and they've certainly made good with refocusing their R&D coming out of that holding period. Probably the biggest piece of information that came out of this briefing is that they have been working on new features within WaltonChain. Such features and coding were not originally forecasted in their roadmap, so they've had to devote more time and resources to the development itself. Two very interesting pieces of information that they shared with us is that first, they're going to be implementing a dual blockchain structure. This aims to solve the problems often seen in blockchain data transfer, which is very critical for their system, as they're dealing with not only the parent chain, but a series of child chains, subchains as well. I'll be really interested to see how they implement this, because I think dual blockchains are one of the most interesting advances in blockchain technology. One of my favorite security coins out there, Navcoin, uses a dual blockchain structure in order to enable the anonymous sending and receiving features that they've built into their system. So we'll definitely want to learn more about that as they continue to develop it. The second really interesting piece that they shared with us is that they've successfully designed an RFID reader-writer, which, as they claim, is unparalleled to any on the market currently. The new hardware will not only read and write data, but also includes the capability to provide computational power to WaltonChain through mining. Essentially, these will act as nodes on the network to better enhance the security and stability of the parent chain, the WaltonChain, as they handle the workload associated with the massive amount of big data that they're dealing with. So I think that's really cool. I think that's really exciting, and is definitely something I think might be worth having to push back the roadmap just a little bit. So as we can see here, this is the amended roadmap for Q4 2017 into Q1 of 2018. And so importantly, the big ticket items of the Genesis blockchain and a lot of the wallet information, the masternode information, has been pushed back to January and February of 2018. So I'm feeling very confident that this is a worthwhile delay. No delay is ever something an investor wants to hear, but I think the reasons that they gave are justifiable. Unfortunately, the price went into a little bit of a sell-off with this news, but if anything, it's just an opportunity if you think this is a worthwhile project. It's totally within reason for you to jump ship if you think this is them not meeting investor expectations, but I think the reasons that they gave are salient to their greater vision, and honestly, Walton is a long-term hold anyways. As I mentioned in my last video, the RFIDs won't even be mass-produced until about Q1 of 2019. So those looking for a flip, a quick buck, I don't know if Walton is the right coin for you, but for those who want to invest in a project with a lot of potential that are going to be doing some really awesome things, this is why Walton is one of my top picks for that. So I know it's going to be controversial. I'd love to discuss it in the comments with you, but in the meantime, we can move on to some other questions. How much money has gone into R&D so far? Walton have spent approximately $8 million in R&D alone, which is really impressive. Given that the Walton team has only been around since this year, it's really impressive that they've already sunk so much capital into research and development, which is critical for them because it's necessary to be able to carve out a space in the industry. So next we have a question about what is a Walton masternode and how/why should I get one? So regarding the how, an account needs to have more than 5,000 Walton coin to become a masternode. Masternodes are granted extra rewards for the bookkeeping operations involved with securing the network. Dependent on how much Walton coin and how long you've had them staking, the rewards will increase. Now, the information about Walton's masternodes have been kind of sparse to this point, but they should be releasing more information prior to February of 2018, with the operational release of masternodes sometime in February of 2018. Regarding why you should want a masternode, especially given that at the time of this recording, a masternode of Walton costs about 25 grand, we can see here the other current cryptos that are implementing masternode systems. The most popular and well-known among them is Dashcoin. Currently, a Dash masternode costs about $275,000, so it's a little bit unattainable at this point. But if you had one, you'd be seeing a return on investment of about 0.7% with an expected monthly revenue of about $1,900. That's pretty significant for really not having to do anything. So we'll wait to see what the respected ROI on the Walton masternode is, and maybe they might reduce the amount needed for a masternode. We won't know until they tell us. But for the time being, the number is 5,000. Having anything above that will grant you extra rewards in the form of the masternode. So how is Walton going to handle the potentially huge transaction loads their network will generate if it takes off? Basically, can their blockchain scale? With Walton touching manufacturing and shipping and consumer data, they need a very responsive network to be able to handle the massive amounts of data that they're parsing. So thankfully, they've thought about this from the get-go. This is what they've built into their system from the ground up. The parent chain of Walton is responsible for the circulation and creation of child chains or subchains, while the implementation of various applications will be completed via those various subchains. The parent chain is a data ledger. It's basically just a ledger of all the different subchains out there, but the ones that are actually going out, collecting data, processing that data, those are the subchains, and they're going to be specialized. As we mentioned in the last video, there's going to be a manufacturing subchain, a shipping subchain, there's going to be a warehouse subchain, there's going to be a consumer subchain, and there can be theoretically an infinite number of these subchains. So in this way, you kind of silo the information and allow it to be compartmentalized. And they're claiming that the transactions processed in one day can be as many as 500,000, which is already good enough to satisfy most of the needs of applications under the public chain. And they go into more detail about the different types of subchains, and they can be public chains, alliance chains, private chains, and various consensus mechanisms can be utilized. Additionally, for subchains, size of a single block can be large within a reasonable scale to improve the transactions per second, but not to affect the verification speed. Walton's design of combining parent chains and subchains is tailored to a large-scale and extensible ecosystem. They built this with scalability in mind. This is another part of their system that we're going to have to keep an eye on, especially once the Genesis blockchain releases in January, hopefully. But I think they're fully aware that this is one of the most critical components of their system. So I think it's probably what they're spending a lot of time perfecting. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on it. Alright, so I've seen this question come up a couple times in both the video and the subreddit. What's the need for the coin? What makes a Walton coin valuable? So this is a pretty easy segue from the question we just talked about, in that the way Walton is structured with the parent chain and the subchains, those subchains are dependent on Walton coins, to be created, to interact with other subchains, basically to do anything that interacts with the Walton ecosystem as a whole. And so with Walton being this sort of groundbreaking, revolutionary ecosystem that's going to totally change the face of manufacturing, shipping, and logistics, more and more businesses are going to join the Walton ecosystem. As a result, Walton coins are going to become more and more valuable as more companies demand to use them, and we see more of them locked up in things such as masternodes. Now, this is about supply and demand. At most, there will only be 100 million Walton coins. Scarcity breeds demand. The only way you can interact with the parent chain is using Walton coin. So I think it's a nice system, especially once the Walton ecosystem is fully fleshed out and we start to see businesses join and create their own subchains. And as a result, we should see the price of Walton coin continue to go up, which I'm sure is very good news for early investors. Alright, so this is something I addressed in my first video on Walton, and that's what is the value Internet of Things and why do I think it's such a big deal. So first we have to talk about the Internet of Things and what current Internet of Things models are based upon and what they aim to do. So currently, Internet of Things models refer to the information exchange and communication between objects on a network. To use an accessible example, think of how your Alexa talks to your smart toaster, talks to your smart light bulbs. These are all things that are communicating to each other on a network. Obviously, that model can be expanded once we talk about it in a commercial sense, in a manufacturing sense, in a shipping sense. But the problem is that there isn't enough decentralization intrinsic into that model. Given today's systems, you can't guarantee that everything is trackable because transactions can only be carried out under the same trust domain. What this means is that they must be verified under the same Internet of Things service provider. And when you have 10 different service providers involved in the supply chain, that can lead to kind of a mess and the loss of critical information regarding the tracking information, the timeline of that product. So this is where Walton envisions the value Internet of Things, which focuses on introducing that blockchain technology to the Internet of Things. This helps solve the problem of centralization currently plaguing Internet of Things systems today. Because the blockchain is a decentralized transaction record and storage technology based on cryptographic principles, it can achieve the permanent storage of an orderly transaction record which is undeletable, tamper-resistant, open, and traceable. So it's a perfect complement to today's Internet of Things systems. Applying the blockchain to IoT and smart systems and connecting the item tags and identity tags in the real world to the virtual network via RFID technology will successfully build this connection and ultimately achieving the interconnection of all things and create an era of value Internet of Things. Quite simply, we have digital presence for physical assets, which I think is groundbreaking. Walton claims that this is going to be the next big thing in 20 years, and given their vision, I kind of have to agree with them. VoIT is one of the best applications of the blockchain out there, bar none. And I'm excited to be invested in one of the first companies working to make it happen. Okay, and so we have a question about what is the wallet used for? So currently it's not out, but they did outline some of the features that it's going to be implementing in that news release we discussed earlier regarding the roadmap being pushed back. So they're doing some alpha testing right now to make sure that the wallet is fully functional and ready for public use. I've seen the criticism that they don't have a wallet out, so this can't be a legitimate coin. But the fact of the matter is their wallet is going to be doing some complicated stuff, such as browsing and querying information regarding blocks, allowing you to look at things such as network status regarding block production time, mining difficulty, network-wide computational power, and node participation. Essentially, it's going to act as a portal for exploring the WaltonChain blockchain. Okay, so what does Walton stand for or mean? It's kind of a weird name, and it has to do with the inventor of the RFID technology, the radio frequency identification device. Charles Walton came up with the technology originally. He designed the technology in 1973 and was awarded the patent in 1983. Now sadly, Charles passed away in 2011, but his legacy lives on in the name of this company. I think it's really cool that they chose to immortalize him as the inventor of the technology that they're utilizing. I've heard rumors that eventually the name will change, but I think for the time being, the team is more focused on development and research, so for now, the name is here to stay. So guys, that's all the time we have for this video. Hopefully I helped shed some light on some questions about Walton that you might have been asking. I'm working on a video to compare Walton versus IOTA versus Modem versus VeChain, so definitely look out for that one because I'm really excited to talk about all four of them at the same time. So definitely look out for that video coming up in the near future and all the other videos that I'm going to be putting out. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. I love helping you guys be better crypto investors, and be sure to subscribe to see more content like this video. Take it easy, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.